Element 10.4, Fire Evacuation Plan. In this element, we will be discussing how we can efficiently develop the fire evacuation plan, what are the contents of fire evacuation plan, and what type of things we can embed in our fire evacuation plan in order to make it efficient so we can easily deal with any kind of fire related emergency at our workplaces. Moving forward towards the means of escape, first we will discuss the means of escape for fire evacuation. When a fire emergency occurs and people have to evacuate a workplace, there must be one or more escape routes available for them to use. This escape route is the means of escape. Local legislations, code of practice, and standards vary in determining exactly what might be required in each specific circumstance, but some of the general principles should be applied. There should be a means of escape available to every person in a workplace, whether they are in office, workroom, plant room, basement, or on the roof, or on a scaffold of a construction site. This means of escape should allow an able-bodied person to travel the entire route by their own unaided effort. They should not have to use machinery such as passenger lift, except in special cases when the machinery must be rated for escape purposes. The means of escape must take a person from where they are in the workplace to the place of total safety outside the building where they are able to move away unrestricted. Two or more separate escape routes may have to be provided so that if one route is blocked, the other should be available. This is common in high occupancy multi-story building. The travel distance that a person has to cover from their location in the building to the final exit out of the building should be short as possible and must normally meet maximum distance criteria. The width of corridor, passage, and doors should be sufficient to allow the free and fast movement of the number of people that might be anticipated and must normally meet minimum width criteria. The escape route should be clearly signed and appropriately lit. Emergency lighting should be provided where necessary in case of main power supply fails. The route that a person has to take should be unimpeded by obstructions such as stored material or inappropriate doors. Many factors affect the exact specification of means of escape. Two important factors are the number of people that will be occupying any given room or area and the general level of fire risk of the workplace. Travel distances. One important characteristic of the means of escape is the travel distance that a person has to take from wherever they are in a room or area to the nearest available final exit, story exit, and separate fire compartment. The travel distance has to be assessed during the fire risk assessment when determining the means of escape and is subject to guidance. Generally, the higher the fire risk of the workplace, the shorter the travel distance has to be. The number of exits is another important characteristic of means of escape. In some instances, it may be acceptable to provide just one exit route from a room or area. However, if the fire risk is higher, the number of occupants is high, greater than 60, or the travel distance are long, then two or more exits must be provided. The underlying principle of having two exits that a person can turn into completely different direction and then has two completely separate routes through and out of the building. Stairs and passageways. Stairs and passageways are used as escape routes, usually have to be protected against fire ingress to a higher degree than other parts of a building. This is to ensure that the stairs and corridors will be free of smoke and flame so that they can be used as escape routes. So the walls, floors, and ceiling will be fire resistant and any doors will be fire doors. It is important that these stairs and corridors are kept free from any equipment or material that might start or become involved in a fire. The width of stairs and corridors should be determined by the number of people who are going to use the route for escape. Higher number of people require wider corridors and stairs to be moved safely and quickly. For example, generally escape routes should not be less than 750 millimeter wide unless they are to be used by fewer than 5 people. Escape routes for use by wheelchair user must be wider, should be minimum 900 millimeter. Doors in the means of escape must be suitable. This means that they are easily operated by a person in a hurry and are wide enough to allow unimpeded passage. They should be open in the direction of travel, though this is not a strict requirement where occupancy numbers are slow. They can be open at all times when they might be needed. They should not be locked with a key or in such a way that a person inside cannot open them. They may be fitted with a vision panel so that smoke and flames can be seen on the other side of the door before it is opened. Emergency escape lighting. Escape routes must be adequately lit. Normal workplace lighting will routinely achieve this, but there should be arrangement to cover non-routine situations such as power failure. This is especially the case when nighttime working is taking place or when the work area is internal to the building or has no external windows, for example, no natural light. Emergency escape lighting is necessary where power failure will result in a blackout. In very simple workplace, this may be a rechargeable torch, but in most workplaces, emergency lighting units are required. Emergency escape lighting should illuminate the escape route and should illuminate fire signs and equipment and be maintained in safe working order, and it should be tested routinely. Routine testing usually takes the form of a monthly function test to check that the light illuminates and an annual discharge test. Record of maintenance and tests should be kept. Exit and directional signs. The escape route should be easy to follow. Signs should be provided so that people can see their available escape routes quickly and easily, leading all way to the final exit and also sign. These signs should meet the requirements of local legislation. Assembly points. An assembly point is a place where workers congregate and they assemble once they are evacuated from a building. This allows for a roll call to be taken and identification of any missing persons. Assembly point should be in place of total safety and at a safe distance from a building and at a safe location, not in any kind of high hazard area. They should be at a location where people can move further away if needed in case of any emergency. They should be out of the way of firefighter and they should be clearly signed. In some cases, a temporarily assembly point or refugee may be provided inside a building. This might use as a location where a person with impaired mobility temporarily waits for assistance to evacuate the building. Here we need to understand the definition of refugee, a protected location normally on or adjacent to a main means of escape where people can wait for a short time. Moving forward towards the emergency evacuation procedures. Every workplace should have arrangement in place to deal with fire emergencies, including evacuation procedures, nominating responsible staff to fulfill certain roles, training staff and providing information to visitors and members of the public, and conducting drills to test procedures. Emergency procedure must be developed so that staff know what to do in the event of foreseeable fire emergencies. Appropriate procedures should tell people what to do if they discover a fire and what to do if the alarm sounds. These procedures are usually quite simple. The emphasis in any procedure must be on personal safety, and the key message must be to sound the alarm, get out, and stay out. More complicated procedure may have to be developed for certain situations. For example, in a hospital, rather than using the basic approach given in the simple procedure, it might be more appropriate to carry out a phased evacuation. Fire marshals. Whatever the fire evacuation procedures are, there will always be the need for some member of staff to take on particular roles in the emergency. Perhaps as nominated fire marshals, sometimes are also called fire wardens, to take roll calls of workers at assembly points and report back to a responsible manager. Fire marshal might be required to check all areas in the building to ensure that everyone knows that an evacuation is in progress and to help where necessary. This is a common practice in buildings where members of the public may be present, for example, shopping centers. Fire marshals might be required to give special assistance to the disabled and infirm. This may require the use of special evacuation equipment such as evac chair. Fire marshal may also be required to investigate the site of the fire as indicated by the fire alarm system control panel at the emergency moment. Some workplaces operate a fire team whose role involves investigation of fire alarm and firefighting. High-risk installation may even have their own in-house firefighter with all the vehicles, equipment, and resources that might be available to the emergency services. For example, at an airport or chemical plant. Roll call.
Once worker and contractor have evacuated a building and collected at their assembly point, it is usual to take a roll call to ensure that all persons are accounted for and no one is missing. This means that arrangement must be made for taking an effective roll call. Accurate list of names of those on site must be produced and responsible individual given the task of taking the roll call. In some cases, for example, in shopping centers, a roll call will be impractical, in which case an alternative method of ensuring that people have evacuated from the workplace will be required. For example, building checks by fire marshal. Provision for the infirm and disabled person in case of any fire evacuation emergency. Staff with hearing or other disabilities must be accompanied with evacuation plan. Plan must be in place to assist people with mobility problems or in wheelchair who cannot use stairs if a lift is inactivated. In many cases, lift and escalators are not appropriate as escape routes. Provision must be made for the needs of other groups with limited mobility, such as the elderly or infirm. Temporary illness and infirmity must also be taken into account. For example, a worker with a broken leg must be accommodated in the evacuation plan. When these arrangements are put in place, the nature and degree of disability or infirmity must be taken into account, and this is best achieved in consultation with the individual concerned. Various solutions might then be sought. For example, a worker with some hearing impairment might be capable of hearing the audible fire alarm in their work area, so no special arrangements are required. A profoundly deaf worker might not be able to hear the audible fire alarm, in which case a visible alarm flashing light might be used in conjunction with the audible alarm, or a buddy system might be adopted where a colleague alerts the worker to the fire alarm, or a technical solution might be sought involving a vibrating pager. A wheelchair user above ground level in a multi-story building might be provided with a refugee adjacent to the stairwell. They might then be assessed down the stair by nominated responsible individual, perhaps with the aid of an evac chair. It must be noted that they should not be left alone in the refuge, and that their safe evacuation is the responsibility of employer, not the fire and rescue services. Moving forward towards the building plan and emergency escapes. The means of escape should be shown on the building plan. These plans usually constitute one of the records of the fire risk assessment. In some instances, building plans should be posted in the building so that the people inside can clearly see what their escape route should be. For example, in hotel rooms. Fire plans. The following factors should be considered when developing a fire plan. Details of who is likely to be in the building, for example, worker, visitor, contractor, vulnerable persons. Action to be taken by the person who finds the fire. How will the alarm be raised? How will the emergency services be contacted? Will this be an automatic system, or will someone be required to phone the fire services? Escape routes, number and location, travel distances, provision of fire route signs, emergency lighting of escape corridors and stairwells. Firefighting equipment, provision of portable equipment, types and its location. Action to be taken after evacuation, roll call, how the roll call should be conducted, fire marshal to check building is evacuated or not, and in the end, training in use of equipment, fire drills, and cooperation with other employers on site. Moving forward towards the training and information, all workers in a workplace should be provided with basic information about fire safety in general and the fire procedure in particular. This should be given at induction and might be repeated periodically or as the need arises. Information on fire procedures should also be provided to contractors and visitors, perhaps through induction training programs or providing them with the written information. Informing members of the public about the fire procedure can be more of a problem, since in many workplaces they can walk in off the street and there is no opportunity for providing them with written information, for example at a shopping center. In these circumstances, a public address system may be the best way of keeping the public informed of an emergency situation and the action they should take. Appropriate additional training should be provided to staff who might have to use portable fire extinguisher, and they are having the fire marshalling role, and they will be assisting infirm or disabled people during an evacuation, and those people who are the member of the fire team. Records of all training should be kept. Employer must be taken into account the health and safety capabilities of workers when entrusting them with the fire safety task. This will apply at all level of worker training, including competent person, fire marshal, etc. Moving forward towards the fire drills in the end, fire evacuation arrangement need to be testing by carrying out fire drills. Generally, fire drills should be conducted annually. The actual frequency should be determined by the fire risk assessment. Fire drills. Fire drills allow workers to practice emergency procedure, and they also ensure the effectiveness of procedure to be tested to ensure that fast, effective evacuation of the building take place and that all workers behave in an appropriate manner. Record of fire drills, learning points, and follow-up actions should be kept.